Hey everyone, it's Ryan from the Rocky Mountain Cigar Show here at the Smokin' Studios. Thank you so much for joining us on yet another Thursday night show. I just am so fortunate that everybody out there watching supports the show, as I just have so much fun creating the content, bringing the guests on. Tonight we have an amazing guest. I've been trying to get him on for a little bit now. He's a tough one to book. He's a very, very busy guy, always coming out with something new. And that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about tonight is one of his newest releases that was actually announced yesterday for PCA. But before we jump here into the show, hey Josh, how you doing? Hey Mike, how you doing? Marshall, good to see you, brother. Hey, I tell you what, if you guys are watching the show, please share it. Let's get the word out. Share the show everywhere and anywhere that you guys feel like. Share the Facebook page or share the YouTube page, as well as if you're not currently a subscriber to the show, jump over to YouTube and click the subscribe button. It costs you absolutely nothing, but helps me out greatly. So, big shout out to all the sponsors that remotely make this show possible. We have BAMF Cigars, ROCF Cigars, Kristoff Cigars, Sagrado Cigars. We have Micallef Cigars, Big Sky Cigars, Cornell and Diehl Pipe Tobacco, La Aurora Cigars, West Tampa Tobacco, as well as the big man, Steve Saga, Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. As always, big shout out to Abe DeBabna over at smokin.com. If you're not part of their Cigar of the Month Club, I don't know what you're even waiting for. Go ahead, jump into the Cigar of the Month Club. You'll get great cigars from this manufacturer in there. I know I have gotten him a couple of times now. So, again, thank you to everybody. I am a little bit off this the start of the show is I'm going to be sharing with everybody some information here. So for those of you that are going to be in the Phoenix area and are watching the show and know who Brad Reith is, I just want to spread the word about his services that will be held. They will be on Saturday, March 16th at 3 p.m. at Desert Springs Bible Church. Now, if you guys would like to stream it, the streaming is down there at the bottom, dsbc.church/memorial. And that'll take you right to his services. So I know I will be watching. I know a lot of you guys will be watching as well. So if you have one of his cigars from Zeal, absolutely light it up, pour yourself a drink, and remember the best times that you've had with Brad or your favorite video that you watched from him. Now, for those of you that are going to be here in Colorado in July, would love to have you down at the Rocky Mountain Cigar Night. It's going to be at Salt and Acres Winery, and it's benefiting the Shadow Warriors Project again. It's Friday, July 26th from 6 to 10. Tickets are only $150 a person. It's going to include all your appetizers, spirits, wine, beer, coffee, soft drinks, complimentary cigars. Last year we gave out 9, as well as a commemorative challenge coin, live music, and live and silent auctions. So definitely, if you are going to be in the Colorado, Denver area, Fort Lupton area, join us on that night. It's going to be fantastic. Last year we raised $30,000 to present a dog to a wounded warrior. And this year we're presenting the dog to the wounded warrior at the event. You're going to be able to take pictures. You're going to be able to hang out. We're going to have a lot of other fun little side stuff going on as well that'll be new for this year. And this year's goal that we're trying to achieve is 2 dogs. So, well, 2 dogs, not 4, but 2 dogs, which is 60 grand. So I think we could do it. Last year we did 30 grand. I really feel confident that we can absolutely do 60K this year. So go to eventbrite.com, in the search tab, Rocky Mountain Cigar Night, and join us there. Tickets are going very quickly. I don't think there's a whole lot left. So if you want to come, absolutely go over and buy your ticket. Now, without further ado, I've yammered and yapped enough. The first 3 minutes of the show was just me talking, and it felt like the first 20. I know, I apologize. Let's go ahead and bring in the man of the hour, the man of the night, Luciano Meirelles. How you doing, bud?
What's up, Ryan, man? Good to see you, brother.
Absolutely. Great to see you. Great to see you. I'm going to give you the floor here. Not that you really need an introduction or to introduce yourself, because anybody watching this show is a huge tobacco geek and obviously knows who you are. But for those of you watching that don't, Luciano, you got the floor. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Give a little bit of background into Luciano Cigars, and then we'll jump into the show.
Oh man, I'm just a tobacco guy. That's all. That's all I like to say.
Just a tobacco guy. Oh man, I tell you what, the best people are always the most modest. Here we are sitting with a master blender, and he is so modest. Well, Luciano, I will say it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Let's go ahead and jump right in here to the only real segment of the night, which is the "What Are You Smoking Tonight" segment. I am smoking the one dedicated to your mother. And what are you smoking tonight?
Man, I'm gonna be smoking three or four things at the same time because I that's how I like to kind of play. I am actually smoking the same cigar as you are right now. And then this is my lineup. I have a Foreign Affair Corona Gorda right here, a top 25 cigar aficionado together with my dear friend Mike the Greek and Frank Cosio. I have actually a Masignos lined up here for my next cigar. And I have an underrated box here in the back. I might crack that out too uh, and smoke one of them. So let's see. Let's see how the night flows.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to having you on. So let's kind of start with PCA, just because that's going to be just kind of get that out of the way. Um, Tell us a little bit about what to expect from PCA. I'm going to do a quick little share screen here, just so that way everybody can see what I am looking at here. So let's see.
Well, we got a few things going on. Uh, yeah, so this one is probably the most recent press release we sent out. It's about cannabis. Um, we have this amazing relationship with the Plasencia family for years. Many people don't know what go behind the scenes of producing cigars and fermenting tobacco. So there's a lot of synergy happening behind the scenes that people have no idea. So uh, we just have a great relationship with them. Our families are close. We do some tobacco business here and there, um, and we've been thinking about creating something special at the same time, uh, opening new opportunities of production into our factory in Nicaragua. And within uh, that kind of strategic mindset, we decided to move Pia Lux production into Tabacos de Oriente, which is their factory in Honduras, in Danlí, Honduras. And we have been like coming on this journey for almost a year on preparing this transition of that specific line. And I feel like the Tenebras is it's almost like a celebration of that relationship. And I know those guys. I know that Nestor do not have even space for producing cigars for other brands. It's not part of that strategy to kind of bring more people. But he was really kind enough to actually receive us and work into uh, this idea of the manufacturing of the Fiat Lux and maybe a future line that we've been talking about. But The Tenebris is a limited edition, has only 15,000 cigars being produced, so only 1,500 boxes. I can tell that we are close to 50% of those boxes already pre-sold. So we think that we're gonna arrive at the trade show probably with no boxes available of the cigar. So if you are
Jeez.
a retailer, make sure you talk to the representative in your area. Make sure you order those because they are flying fast. Probably, I think it's one of the fastest releases that we ever had. So it's just moving quick. So
Now, have you ever had a cigar sell out before PCA?
um, I have stuff that we made for other companies that sold out before PCA, but this is actually our first limited edition. We never had a limited edition before. We always had PCA specials, uh, but we always been focused on really producing core lines. I think the main problem I see these days is that it's so many people doing so many uh, short releases or limited editions and not building the core, the strength of the core of their lines. And at the end of the day, it can be a good thing for the retailer, but actually in the long run, it's not a good thing. You don't want your branding just kind of dying every time, that limited edition ends. So you want to make sure that you have core products always available to the consumer, so they really get to know uh, who you are, what you're capable of doing, and falling in love for the products that you produce. So I think the strategy of doing a limited release, I think, and I say this with a little tone of criticism uh, to myself and to everybody in the industry. It should not be something. When I say it's a critic to myself, it's not because we are doing it. Actually, we have to do some quote unquote limit releases to other companies before. And the part of the introduction, I didn't mention that actually we started way before Ace Prime. So we've been making cigars for other brands for a long time. Selling tobacco was our first thing. But on our stuff is the first time. And what's the criticisms? I'll explain the criticism. I think that if you're going to claim to be doing a limited edition of anything, you have to be truthful to what you're selling. It has to be limited. It has to have a reason to be limited. I see a lot of people say, "Oh, it's limited because I just made this." Uh, Again, I think the world is craving like truth and waiting for real stories and not more any bullshit, any of those kind of money grabber strategies that we see happening, unfortunately, in all industries. I'm not just saying cigars, but whatever is limited, it's limited. Listen, I was there working on the blend uh, in Dundee at the Tabacos de Oriente, and then I got invited to uh, to go into their pre-industry and kind of see some of the wrappers they had. And then I see the pilon. It was the smallest pilon in the entire room. And I said, "What is this?" And then, then I found this amazing, dark, beautiful, oily, natural oily wrapper. And I look at it and I said, "What is this?" And I then one of the guys, actor who kind of handles all the production there, he got one of the leaves, and then I tried the leaf, and then I brought some leaves also back to the factory to start like the first what will become the first Tenebris. And I was so impressed, man. I was so impressed by the tobacco. I was like, man, this is just amazing. So if you have this tobacco and it's so old, they have that for more than 5 years. I said, why are you not using it? So, well, because we just have 15,000. I said, so, but this will be a great limited edition. I said, yeah, we would. I said, what about if we do that limited edition, as a celebration of that manufacturing, partnership, and they like the idea. Of course, have to get approval from everybody, and it worked. And they did a great job, man. I can't wait until people smoke that cigar. It has that same salivation, sweetness. It has the same characteristics of the Fiat Lux, with the difference that there's a lot of depth and sweetness. So you feel like the density of the cigar just by smelling, the cigar when you first light. So yeah, that's the one you're showing right now. That's the Tenebris, and we're excited about Tenebris, but it's a limited edition, limited release, and it will be sold out, I think, before the trade show. But it's something that we'll be bringing to the trade show. Now we don't know if this will last until the trade show.
Well, I love the Fiat Lux. And to be honest with you, it's incredibly fitting that if you're going to do a limited release, the Fiat Lux is very fitting that you do a limited release with the Fiat. I mean, it's got to be one of your top lines, right?
It is. Like, that's what I'm saying. So we have the Fiat Lux was one of the first cigars we released, as Ace Prime, and it was a cigar that was very easily uh, well accepted, like was well distributed,
Yeah.
and we see, it's a very kind of stable product for us. So we sell a good volume of it, and people know there's a lot of brand awareness around the Fiat Lux. So if we have to do a limited edition, definitely the Fiat Lux would be the best one, and that's why we did it. And it's a coincidence that it's the line that we just moved over to Tabacos de Oriente.
So let me ask you this. I've always wondered this. If you're going to do a limited run, why not make a limited line? Like, and call it the Tenebre, I'm sorry, I am the worst at pronunciations. I could barely speak English 99% of the time. The Tenebris, why not just make a whole new limited line? Why attach it to the Fiat Lux? And I guess marketing wise, mental wise, for the people that buy Fiat Lux, yes, I get it. It's that awareness of it. But I've always wondered that. Why not just make just a completely new limited line that just is a one and done and goes away? Why attach it
Listen,
to
we can we could do it, but I think there is a story there about Fiat Lux. Listen, I was at the Grande Tabacos de Oriente factory, uh, working on Fiat Lux when the opportunity of a limited edition using a very special wrapper occurred. And if you pay attention to every single cigar that we make, there is a story, but it's not a made up story. So there's only two possibilities with our brands. We either have a story or a trajectory that culminates into a new brand, or we have a new brand, and in the process of creating that new brand, we tell the real story of that process. It's just only two possibilities. There's no fucking. I got inspired by a bird that was walking and then I decided to make a cigar with the name of the bird, and that's it. So for us, it has to have depth. It needs to have meaning. And I'll tell you a story actually. The idea of the name Tenebris came from one of our reps. He's our regional sales rep in the Midwest, and we were having this conversation. Actually, it was at the trade show of last year, and we have this conversation in the patio, and we have all the reps around, and we're talking, we're having fun, and then one of the guys, Josh Beaver, uh, come and say, "Hey, man, if you're gonna do a limited edition, I think it should be called Tenebris and should be connected with Fiat Lux because, Tenebris is the Latin word for darkness, and because Fiat Lux is all the sizes of Fiat Lux and the story of Fiat Lux is based in knowledge. Uh, there's this whole concept of coming from darkness to light, and I think will be a great conversation to have with our consumers. It will be a great story. And actually, I found his idea brilliant. So the idea of the name came actually from one of the discussions with our reps, and we mentioned this in actually in the press release. It was a very interesting philosophical conversation, and from there the idea was born, and then here we are. You know.
So you're launching this cigar. It's a one and done, limited, a true limited edition.
Hmm.
1,500 boxes. Vast majority of them are already completely sold out. What does that feel like for you to 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 produce something that is not even nothing but a damn picture is released, and you're already through over half your inventory, probably going to be through the rest of it in the next 2 weeks, week and a half. What does that feel like to you? Because it wasn't always like this. Your
Oh, it
cigars didn't
feels.
always sell at this level, to the extent where now they're literally selling out. They've always done very well, of course, but like, you are and please don't take offense to that. Your name is building big time right now in the industry, as far as Luciano Cigars is concerned. And this says a lot to one, who you are, how you brand, how you market, and the quality of your product, that it's not even on the market yet and it's selling out. Um, so how does that make you feel? Because you've come so far in this industry to where now
It
you're
feel.
selling out.
It feels so goddamn good, right? So no, listen. I one of the things that bothers me the most is when I walk into a store and I see one of our products sitting in the shelf that was released, a long time ago. You can see the boxes is a little dusty. You can see that there are it's sitting like in the back and not even open yet, and it's been a year or something like that. So this is I actually find this extremely frustrating. I had this conversation with one of our clients. Actually, I'm not going to mention names, of course, and he was saying to me like, hey, this was over the phone. He was saying like, hey, listen, I got some of your products here, and some of these products is just not moving. When I hear that type of thing, I really get bothered. Not because because I want to know the reason why, right? So then I go to our CEO. I say, take a look at this account, or I go to Ed Trevino, our VP of sales, and say, take a look at this account, see what's going on. And then the guy comes back to me and said, well, there's a store with just 16 miles from there, and we did like 20 times the business we did with this guy, and he's selling everything all the time. So now the question is there anything wrong with our cigars? So if there is, then I have no problem in kind of taking full responsibility and moving on. But the truth is, which answers your previous question, we are extremely proud of the products that we put out there. So everything is extremely thought through, and not just the story, but the fact that we have a now over 18 brands, and none of the cigars on all these brands, they actually are alike. So people might say that we have some kind of signature in terms of the experience of smoking the cigar being a clean experience, not having harshness into our cigars. But they cannot say that the cigar tastes the same. Every single cigar that we put it out have somehow been a disruptive cigar within our own portfolio. So we pride ourselves of doing that. And again, listen, we come from making cigars. Branding is something kind of new. If you look, we launched our first brand in 2018. So it's been like only 6 years, you know, that we launched our first brand. But before that, we're making cigars for other companies, and actually also uh, selling tobacco for other companies for more than a decade. Even before we launched all our stuff. So we come from that kind of background of excellence into manufacturing to a point, because when you outsource manufacturing, because you are looking for the best construction, the best the best possible blend, and from there we created the brands, and we are so careful with every single brand that we launched. So now, answering your question, being recognized and having seen our products just kind of moving so quick, and all the brands that we have, and now over more than 1,000 stores all over the country. It's something that's not just rewarding. I hope that it's always the consequence of a good product, a good blend out there, and not just the brand. I think, if I know it is naive, and I heard this from lots of friends in our industry. They say that, oh, what really matters is the brand. Not everybody really pick up on all this flavors you're trying to build in, and sometimes people even laugh at me on that stuff. But I honestly believe that the secret of success of our company is deeply rooted into the blends. It's at the end of the day, we are actually trying to conquer the heart of the cigar nerd who's paying attention to what he's smoking. We are not looking for the guy who just saw an article in a magazine or see branding, 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 and walk in a cigar shop, recognize the brand and smoke, but he will smoke another cigar just next year. No, we are looking to those guys who are in deep love with this culture, who are seeking to smoke a different cigar, who are seeking to smoke or experience a taste profile that they haven't experienced before, and they know that with our company, they can expect that everything that we put in the market will surprise them. So look at what we did with the underrated. Like, it's a very good example. We use tobaccos that most people are very afraid of using it. Fermenting Connecticut broadleaf for fillers. It's something that everybody's afraid of because there is a lot of combustion issues. So you have to ferment for a very long time, and you have to do it right to have a cigar to burn, with a Connecticut broadleaf. So we used HVA fillers, which is mainly a wrapper. So we're using actually that as an Ecuadorian leaf as a filler. And we built a cigar that actually people can buy for under $9, at any Bitola. So it's just something that, yep, there it is, that we are very happy about, the results of the cigar. It's called underrated for a reason. So we believe that, when people smoke it, they will be impressed with what they are smoking for the price they paid, and it's not seen as a from us. Obviously, it's not seen as a budget cigar because we want all our clients, as many people as possible, it's smoking the cigar and having the experience, the impact of that taste profile. It's so deep, so much sweetness. Construction is just on point, and you have so many, I would say, expensive tobaccos in there, and we were able to provide this to the consumer at a very low price because we use a lot of wrappers of these tobaccos. And once you buy a container of broadleaf, there's always going to be binders, fillers, other things that comes within the wrappers. We've been accumulating this for years to be able to supply for much more years ahead. So that was the whole concept behind the underrated.
Now show the box too, because there's a quote on the box that's not seen in
Yeah. So this has not been revealed yet, but it will be. People that got the box, they might be asking themselves, like, why there is a quote there that says "Defy expectations, delight in the underrated," and it's signed by Ron Harper. You guys will all find out about this very soon. But we have a very interesting partnership with this brand, and we are telling a true story behind this brand. And obviously, now that the cigar has been shipped everywhere. You might be asking, is that the Ron Harper, the 5 times NBA champion? Yes, it is. That's him. But the concept that we wanted to prove is that we will only actually reveal that Ron Harper is associated with this brand after people receive the cigar and smoke the cigar. Because I think also people are tired of buying cigars because it's signed by someone or because it's a celebrity cigar. And we don't want this to be a celebrity cigar. Ron is a cigar man. I mean, he's probably, from all the NBA players that I know personally, he is probably the most kind of aficionado, like passion, smoking probably, 10 cigars a day kind of guy. So he's a cigar gig, and uh, I met him through actually a common friend, through Frank, and he is the one who said, "Hey, listen, I don't want a celebrity cigar. I want a cigar that's underrated." So I'm telling you, the whole name and concept came from him. He was he knows that he has always been underrated. He's a guy that was always like the support to all these major players and essential for every single team that he played for. And the guy's it's a big star of the basketball, but he's just so kind of humble and discreet, and uh, you know such, with such a good heart. So we wanted to tell that story, and that's why we built the cigar the way we built. So this is something cool that people will find out. Well, Ron is actually coming to the PCA, and he'll be there, so people have a chance to get to know him. Uh, you know, Again, it's a fantastic project. Now people experience that cigar, without even knowing uh, any of that story. And now we can tell the story because we got already, stores doing their third, fourth reorder of the product. So they love the product, not because it's signed by anyone. It's just because they love the product and they love the name, they love the story. So now we can make that connection, and we believe that will be extremely rewarding for everybody. For Ron, for us, we're just so happy to be able to tell this story and make sure that people are in love with the cigar for what the cigar is, not because there's some kind of celebrity sign.
No, and I appreciate that. It's like low key celebrity cigar. It's got a name without the flash and glam, because you want the cigar to speak for itself. You don't want the cigar to sell because
Yeah.
so and so is attached to it. So what what is it like then when somebody like Ron walks up to you and you guys start that collaboration? Where do you begin with that? How much involvement does he have in the final say, or is he testing stuff alongside with you guys, or kind of what's that relationship like in the making of the underrated?
So you always have my commitment that I will always tell you the real story. So Ron it's a cigar connoisseur, you know, and there was no I couldn't made up a story and say, hey man, we did this blend together, we'll be bringing back and forth and whatever, and there's a nice story associated with. But listen, no, he just trusted us. He's been smoking our stuff for a long time. He plays in a golf course here that it's owned by Michael Jordan. He's one of his best friends, and they connect all the time. So he was actually at the Grove, and we have our products there, selling there. And Frank, which is his mutual friend, Frank Cosio, he basically introduced Ron to all our lines, all our cigars, and he kept asking for. And one day he said, "I want to meet this guys, man. When can I talk to Luciano?" And then we set up a dinner. We had a dinner. We got to know each other. And 1 year later, I told Ron, I said, remember that project you're talking about? So I think now it's the time. So I sent the samples to him, and he smoked it. Said, "This is it."
That's
That's the
awesome.
true story. There's no like fucking, oh, that guy came and we did this, and then people take pictures holding leaves. And look, we saw it. It's just fucking bullshit. Yeah, we don't. We wanna stay away from that.
Dude, I love the no frills way you tell your stories because you're like, yeah, it's not like we were holding up leaves, taking pictures, blowing bubbles with it, and everything else.
Oh,
I
don't take me
appreciate that.
wrong. I mean, if you, no, I take pictures with leaves, but those usually are
No, of
candid
course,
pictures of
correct,
real time, of real stories. Like,
correct, correct.
that's what we want. We want the real stuff.
So I'm curious because literally every one of your cigars has an incredible backstory. I mean, the one we're smoking now is dedicated to your mother, or the I don't know which one you've
Mhm.
moved on to, but the one I'm smoking now.
I'm still,
So,
yeah,
what comes first, the cigar or the story?
yeah. Like I was telling you before, I think there's always three scenarios. I told you about two. The two most important scenarios for me, or the two possibilities are because there's something that maybe you don't know about me. So I blend. Well, recently I haven't, but I blend almost every single day. It's just because it's a way for me to cope with the synesthesia. It's a medical condition that I have, so it helps me focus my brain. So at the end of the day, I ended up with a bunch of different blends, and sometimes I get obsessed with trying to get a specific result in a blend. And in this process of finding that blend, certain stories are 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 just happening. When I was doing, for example, the Fiat Lux, I didn't have the name for the cigar. I was just obsessed with the idea that in order for you to open all your taste buds in your mouth, you need to be salivating. Just like as for eating, you cannot eat if you don't salivate. It's impossible. And the flavor of the smoke can only be perceived in your mouth fully if you actually salivate. That's why your front palate perceives flavor, under your tongue, the size of your cheeks. If you don't open those taste buds, you're only going to feel the flavor of the smoke in your upper palate, in your nostril, when you exhale. It's just impossible. So I was obsessed with creating a cigar that will make you salivate more than any other cigar, right? Trying to find that balance of minerals between the salinity, magnesium, make sure that there is the constant salivation. Uh, then I realized that I was going so much into, and I dipped myself so much into the biological and geological uh, chemistry of trying to achieve that I decided to name the the cigar something that was connected with knowledge, with discovery, you know. And the expression that was used during the social movement of enlightenment was the same expression that you find in the Bible in Latin that says "fiat lux" or "let there be light." So are you coming from darkness, not having access to knowledge, and then having access to light, to knowledge. It's when now you see so many things happening after the Enlightenment, where people now can truly see things. They can see things as they are. So the the religious establishment does not control people anymore because now they can read books. Now they can actually read the Bible, which they couldn't read before. Uh, so that's the analogy that was built. But it was probably one of the blends that took us the longest. You know, it was like one blend after the other. I think at the end, so I think Mike the Greek might know because he was with me there when we got the final blend, which was just 15 minutes. I smoked that cigar and approved it 15 minutes before I was leaving to the airport from Esteli to Managua, leaving to the airport to go straight to Vegas to the trade show. uh, it was uh, it was a quite interesting experience of just kind of trying to discover uh, you know that kind of blend that would actually give what we're looking for. So that's an example of the story came first, and then the name made sense to the story. Now, the other, the other very common thing is when you have an idea story, and that's Maria Lucia, and you want to translate that story into a cigar. It's also, it has always to be a true story, right? So what happened with Maria Lucia is my daughter was only 14 years old when she had a dream of a woman, and she did that drawing that you have in the band right now. So this drawing here, she dreamed that this woman was actually dying, and she could not save her, and she woke up in tears, and then got a she got a piece of paper and just did this. This is a basically a vector form of the original. This is exactly how she drew that the art, and that was when she was only 14 years old. So it's a long story, but my kids have never seen my mom, my biological mother, because she died when she was 12. At that time, we had no pictures of her. She had me at a very young age too. She was only 17 when she got pregnant with me. Um, and they never met her, and there was no digital photos. There's nothing printed. Uh, they didn't see much of her because I was raised by my grandparents with my uncle as a brother, basically, because we're not too far apart. And uh, and then 4 years later, Deborah is turning 18. We got this box from my uncle that had letters that my mom wrote uh, to me when I was a little boy that I never had access to uh, of that of the image. And then he she basically well, we basically opened that box at her birthday because we want them to kind of discover together. As we opened the box, a photo of my mom was kind of flipped down, and in the back of the photo says Maria Lucia 18th birthday, was written in Portuguese. So when I flipped that photo, Deborah, my daughter, looked at her, and she immediately, I'm talking about 4 years later, she's now 18, she immediately recognized the woman, and she said, "That's the woman of my dream that I had on 4 years ago." And then we went crazy, like trying to search for the drawing, and we couldn't find it. It took us days to find the drawing. But the other coincidence is that uh, she, Deborah was actually turning 18, and the photo said Maria Lucia 18th birthday. So that's super cool. People can maybe go to uh, I don't know if it's the company's Instagram, my personal Instagram, but her photo, my mom's photo, is there next. You can see one next to the other, so you can see the resemblance of the artwork and her. So now 18, she's 18. Now fast forward another 4 years. Now it's 2022 when we actually launched the Maria Lucia cigar. So now you have the story, you have the story, and uh, because of the very little interaction I had with my mom, um, I could only remember, because of the synesthesia too, like the smell of her hair, the smell of her skin. She used to smoke cigarettes, so I remember that there was a mix of her cologne and the cigarettes. So there was some tobacco always present in her hair and skin. And I remember the texture of her voice and her personality. She would have her voice. I know it's a weird thing, but I can memorize voices, frequencies, and stuff. So my middle daughter Rebecca has exactly the same kind of a very similar voice to what used to be my mom. It's a very kind of warm voice with some kind of uh, uh, air. That's how I can describe it. Her voice is like a very kind of smooth
Whisperiness.
voice. Yeah, whisperiness. And so my idea was like, can I create a cigar that will somehow express all those memories in the cigar so I can honor, her life? Can I make a cigar that actually I feel that the texture of the smoke is connected actually with the texture of her voice and her skin and the smell that I have a memory of, and her personality, her smile. Like, I try to really develop the blend to the personality. So now you have this story, and because of the story, that culminated into a cigar. So those are the two examples that I explained before. And then the third example is just when you get commissioned to make a cigar, and this is very common too. Sometimes, but that usually is not to our own brands. So someone asks us to make a cigar with certain characteristics, then I will just kind of dive into what that person is looking for, and I'll try to build the blend based on the descriptions I receive or the experience that I have. Or sometimes I will just dig the personality. I see some guys here talking about the NFG last week. I think it was the beginning of the show. Uh, I made a cigar for underground cigar shop there, and that guy, uh, his last name is Covington, and he has a story with the shop owner and with the people there, the community there. And he and the owner of the shop said, "Hey, listen, I want to make a cigar, an exclusive for the event, but a cigar that will actually uh, kind of pay homage to this family here. It's the Covington family." So I called Don and I said, "Hey, man, tell me more about them. Can you send me pictures of them? Can you tell me what he does, what he likes to do? Who he is and his wife? Do they have kids?" So, and based on what I saw and I felt, we developed that blend for underground, uh, and yeah, again, it has to have a meaning. You know, Meaningless things, they uh, they just they just don't drive me at all. I just cannot make a cigar for anyone, and much less to ourselves, just like because. Okay, I'm gonna make a cigar that I see some. I think it's a big mistake, especially small companies. And sometimes I ask that question to the brand owner. I say, "Hey, why you want to do this?" I'm talking about sometimes companies that we make cigars for. So why you want to do this? Oh, because it's a sexy name, or because it's catchy. You know, it might work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. It might sell. I just don't see. I don't have excitement when I hear the stories. When I see brands that have absolutely no stories to connect to. I hope we always will have products that we can proudly say, listen, this is a true story. This is something that happened. And what you're smoking right now is this. It's a celebration of this. Or sometimes, in the case of Maria Lucia, is that kind of mix of pain and happiness at the same time. It's that it's like facing reality. It's facing those paradoxes and kind of remembering. So you have these countless stories that you can ask. There's some of the reps I see they are here, but there are countless stories about people coming to me in cigar events or coming to the reps and say, "Hey, I bought the Maria Lucia because I just lost my mom last week, and that story connected with me, and I decided to smoke this cigar to kind of uh, you know just remember, or just to honor, the memory of my mom and stuff." So when I see those connections happening, it makes me really happy. You look at Foreign Affair, man. That's a cigar that's truly a result of these two guys, starting with Mike the Greek, just kind of coming to our factory, living in Nicaragua for a full year, trying to learn everything about tobacco and you know, uh, about the manufacturing and fermentation, and then Frank coming, back two times, and then the third time, and we're building this together, and the idea of having leaves from four different regions of the world, and us being completely different from each other. We have different backgrounds, we have different experiences. Yeah, here's Mike right there. So we have the experience of building this together, finding joy in building together. So what is the story? We actually had the cigar before the name. Again, we had the cigar before the name. So the name came after. It was actually Mike the Greek who bought this idea of the name. He said, I love this idea of a foreign affair. Like we are distanced from in terms of culture, and we have all these tobaccos from all over the world, and we're putting all this together, and there's a flavor that's born out of this interaction of these leaves. A very very powerful flavor, powerful experience, and then we created the brand Foreign Affair. You name it, bro. You name it. Then comes White Panda, for example. It's another good example of Panda. I remember the first day when Panda shows up at our factory in Nicaragua, and the kid walks in and says, "I want to learn tobacco." He didn't ask for a brand. He didn't ask for to make a cigar. He just want to learn. And at the end of this process, not even the end because he still lives there, but at certain point of this process, like I think it was probably after a year or so, I said, Panda, I want to tell your story, man. You are helping me with the farm. You are supervising some of the fermentation rooms. You are involved. You learn how to bunch a cigar. You're involved here. So I want to tell a story about this kid who came to Nicaragua and learn about tobacco. And he's probably the only Chinese that I know of that truly have learned. It's learning about tobacco. I want to tell that story, and what motivates you to do what you did. So let's build this. Let's build this together. And then White Panda was born, and we can go on and on. That's 15 more brands for us to talk about.
That's but that's the fun of it. I actually and Mike, you were on. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but you were on the show with Danny and I for Raw Cigar Review, and I think and Luciano, you jumped on that too. I think we were the first. I think we smoked the Foreign Affair before it was officially released. And I know we were the first to review it live, actually. Yeah, that's what I thought. I love this. I love it so much. I keep them around, right? Like it's such a great cigar, and not only that, but the size. So
Yeah,
I gotta say I completely agree with you. I mean, let's be very blunt and honest here. All this is rolled up leaves put in a right way that make them taste great, just like any other ingredient. Chicken's just chicken unless it's cooked by a master chef and turned into a Michelin class meal. Part of what makes the experience is the experience that went into making it, and the story behind it, that oftentimes dwindles what the cigar is, because the story oftentimes is better than the cigar. Because without the story, there's no point of having the cigars. And especially with you very much create a story, and then the cigar to follow it. Without the story, it wouldn't be that style of cigar, that type of cigar. So I am a huge believer that stories with brands and everything else really do make that cigar what it is. And like you said, oh, it's a sexy name. Is there something going on in the background? Are you hearing stuff?
I can hear everything. It's all good.
Like I'm hearing like a scratching or something. Maybe that's just me. Um,
Or maybe
um,
it's me, like, my chair might be a little squeaky or something.
yeah, no worries, no worries. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just on me. But no, I'm a firm believer that without a good story, it's just rolled up tobacco. Because just like everything in life, A great car comes with a great story. Ferrari's got a great story. It's a great car, Lamborghini, Corvette, all of these guys. Without the story, the car wouldn't exist. And really very much tied in with your brand is every single story of every one of your cigars.
Yeah, hey, there's something that some of my guys are probably tired of hearing it, but there's a story that my grandpa always used to say. Like my grandpa's so funny, man. He would sometimes, well, not sometimes, every time he would get into a flight, he's old now. The man is turning 90 years old in a few months. God permits, his health is not so good. Um, but he always used to kind of dress up. He would go in a suit in any flight. If he was going to get a flight, he'd dress up and put a suit to get into the flight. And I asked him, say, Grandpa, why you have to always kind of, dress up to kind of take flights? I got to go comfortable. And he answer was always very philosophical about that. He said that we all have three images: what people think we are, what we think of ourselves, and who we truly are. And because he was a religious minister, he was a pastor. He actually used to say that not that we truly are, but what God knows we are, because He's the only one that knows who we are. But his point is, if we can align all these images, because now there's a dystopia, especially social media, like people think they are things that they are not, right? Or sometimes
What? Come
they
on.
they pretend to be things they are not, or they truly believe they are things that they are not. Or sometimes people have a perception of who they are, but actually it's far away from who they truly are, or for even what he thinks of himself. So now, if you can align these three things, it's great, right? So if you can align, uh, you know, a good brand, a story. The story is real, so that's aligned with a real cigar. That's aligned with a very, very good cigar. And that cigar, it's not good because I'm saying so. It's because everybody recognizes that that cigar is good. So like when you have all these three things together, chances for you to be successful, chances for you to be happier as a person are much higher when you don't have to kind of have this dissociation, of images. You are who you are. Sometimes there's a price to it, but it's worth of actually paying the price. I think it's trendy now to be real.
No, it certainly is, and it kills the image when you're found out to be fake. Absolutely. So I always tell people, if you're gonna tell a story, you better make sure the story is accurate and that it is truthful, because people are gonna randomly ask you about it. The last thing you want to do is trip up on
Yes.
anything. So
And my grandpa used to say too, like if you always say the truth, you don't need to have a good memory.
no,
And
you
I,
don't. You don't. I learned that one with my mom when she would say, "Oh, you said something different like an hour ago. Did you not
yeah.
remember that one?" So yeah, I appreciate that sentiment as well. So I want to kind of get back into your roots in the tobacco world. How old were you when you started smoking cigars?
Oh, my first cigar, I was probably 17 to 18 years old. I was actually visiting back Brazil, and I had a Bolivar Redentor. The Bolivar Redentor is it's that kind of Bolivar that they did, the exclusive that they do for countries. Like they have the exclusive to Germany, exclusive to the, Havanas do. The Bolivar was actually exclusive to Brazil. So I smoked that cigar for the first time. That was my first cigar. And I can still remember the flavor of everything of that cigar. It was amazing. But it's very unfortunate that you can't find that same quality on Cuban cigars anymore.
It
Sometimes
it
you do, but
is.
very rare.
It is. And in fact, that's it's typically what I'm told from people that buy Cubans a lot. Obviously, if you know the box codes and stuff like that, I don't. But you typically you're throwing away, 10 to 20% of a box because they're just the quality control isn't the greatest.
Yeah.
So,
But
so have you ever?
you know how to spot, do you know how to spot a fake Cuban cigar?
I've been
I'll
told.
tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, please tell me. What have you been told?
I've been told that with certain labels or brands, you can tell that those bands are real, but you
Mhm.
can pretty much only guarantee that the band is real, not necessarily the cigar.
Yeah, so here's how you spot a fake Cuban cigar, right? If the cigar draws well, the cigar tastes good, has a good construction, that's a fake Cuban.
I have not heard that one before, but I am gonna take it and use that.
No,
That is great.
I'll tell you a real story. Got invited to this wedding. I've never been on a cruise before, so I went into this cruise. The cruise stops in Jamaica, I think. So we all get out. So the groom goes and buy a bunch of cigars, and he brings into the into the boat because technically we thought we are not supposed to smoke there, and he just wanted to bring cigars. And then he comes like super proud and offer me this kind of cohiba, smoke this cohiba, and I fuck, we are. There's no La Casa de Havana here, so it's impossible that cigar is real. It's 100% fake. And you look at the box, you see that the box is like has the kind of plexiglass box, which they don't make that stuff. Uh, but I
Cubans
light
don't
this.
come in glass lids.
But man, I light up that cigar. That cigar was phenomenal. That cigar was amazing. It was just perfect. I don't know if it was because I wasn't smoking cigars for probably 3 or 4 days, but when I smoked that cigar, I was so happy. That cigar tasted amazing. And it was a fake Cuban cigar. That's why I say, sometimes when they're fake, they're better.
Yes, because
On the
they'll at
Cubans.
least smoke right.
Cubans. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, have you ever tried to recreate that Bolivar just for yourself?
Mhm. That's another polemic here. I listen, because of the synesthesia that has like, I don't know, 99% of bad stuff and headaches and stomach issues and nausea, and it's so many bad stuff. There's 1% of things that I would say can be very useful. You can call it some superpowers, right? So I memorize flavors. So I told you that none of our products they taste like each other. It's because I always felt like trying to clone a cigar was like cheating. So if I'm going to replicate something that already it's in the market, it always felt a little bit like cheating. So that's why I think one of the reasons why we have in our portfolio all the cigars that taste different is because I don't want to ever, have a taste profile that is uh, too similar or similar to an existing taste profile. We want to always try to find a disruptive taste profile that it's not there yet, or if it's there yet, doesn't have that expression. So, yeah, well, if I had Cuban tobaccos available, most likely I would be able to replicate that.
You don't think you could replicate that with what you have?
Yeah, we can get close. Uh, we can get close to that taste profile. But there are certain things that are unique, unique to the soil, unique to how the tobacco is fermented. But there's always a ways uh, to find a way to kind of get close to what the taste profile is.
So you're 17, you smoked the Brazilian release of the Bolivar. Now what? What is your next lineage in this inside the cigar world? When do you take those first steps in?
Zero. I just enjoyed smoking cigars. So my journey into cigars into the industry it starts in 2000 by end of 2007, beginning of 2008, but officially 2008, February of 2008. Uh, I was working 2017 with finances. I was basically working with investment funds. I created some investment funds at a very young age, and one of the collateral business of my private equity fund was being able to connect with several blue chip companies, companies that they're very large and they want to expand into different markets, and that became a business. So I started giving consultancy to these companies, and one of my clients became the government of Dominican Republic. So I was helping them fight for tax exemptions in some countries or tax incentives to import things into countries that they had previously bilateral agreements with Cuba. So they would import products with absolutely zero tax, and the Dominican products they would get very high tax in this country. So we helped them almost like in a private lobbying scenario, and it was a very successful case. And in 2008, I met Ernesto Perez Carrillo, and we became good friends. Uh, and I make a kind of life decision. It's a long story, but that life decision was basically changing my lifestyle. I was not the best family man at that time, so I decided to change that. So the getting to the tobacco world was not just a way for me to cope with that challenges that I had with my medical condition, but as well as healing my soul. I think especially at that time when my kids were much younger, I think I was a much better father when I got into the tobacco business, because that's where we started, uh, than when I was doing everything else, because I was traveling everywhere. I was living in basically three different countries and seeing my family maybe one third of the year. When I changed into cigars in 2008, into tobacco first in 2008, there was a big shift, in my life. The way it started too, I started very slow. I was blessed to be able to not depend on the business to actually survive. So we just changed a little bit of our lifestyle and adapted uh, to a new reality. But I was able to take, a couple of years sabbatical and just, go on the weekends to DR, and then later, spend like maybe a week in Nicaragua and then 3 weeks back home. And as the kids, start growing up, then I start spending more time in Nicaragua. So now I spend more time there than here. But that kind of summarizes a little bit of my journey. Everything started in 2008. Ernesto was a good friend in a very difficult time of my life. He taught me a lot about the business side of the tobacco. Uh, One of his main advices was like, if you want to get into this business, don't do like everybody else and build a brand, and then you go to manufacturing, then you go to tobacco. Learn tobacco first, grow tobacco, ferment tobacco, and then eventually you can get into cigars. And truly, tobacco has always been the number one passion, like blending and fermenting and but I came to enjoy a lot this process of also getting to know retailers and getting to the business of promoting and creating brands, and which I love as well. But yeah, that's our story. We started in Nicaragua with a small garage, two tables there, and then making cigars for uh, for other people. And then a few years later, we got a nice contract with the bigger company and started making lots of cigars for that company, and then another company, and then when we reached about 3 million cigars a year, that's when Tiago, my business partner, kind of convinced me to kind of create the brands and start producing for ourselves. Um, and here we are, man. It's been like I said, 6 years since we start the business of creating brands, and just roughly 2 years, little less than 2 years actually, that we became completely vertical, that we distribute our own products. Uh, and it's been it's been a quite a journey, man, and I can say a successful journey.
I would say incredibly fucking
Uh,
successful journey, man. You were making a million. So that explains very that really explains why you are such close friends with the Placencias, because you guys have had a similar journey. They grew
mm.
tobacco for everybody else and then started their own brand after the fact of that too. You kind of had that similar growing tobacco, making for other brands. Once you hit a million cigars for other brands, you were brought in kicking and screaming to make your own brand. And look at how successful it has been, and it truly has been a hell of a journey to be on, I'm sure. So you meet Ernesto in 2008. Who are some of your other mentors along the way in the tobacco world that you wouldn't be who you are without?
I think I have one name that I can say that I would never be here without that mentorship. Well, there's two names, definitely Ernesto at the beginning, but it's a guy called Arsenio Ramos. Not many people know him. Uh, he was known as being probably the legend, the most knowledgeable guy into fermentation. Extremely, extremely knowledgeable, and he worked for Avanos SA for many years. But he spent probably the last 10 years of his life working for Eduardo Fernandez at Arganosa in Esteli, Nicaragua. And I was just privileged to get to know this man, and he had such a good heart to and willingness to teach people that was willing to learn. And that's why when I see, like Mike the Greek and Panda wanting the same thing, I almost feel like I have this obligation to carry on that torch of being somehow a mentor to other people as well. Uh, I would just almost like on a daily basis, I would say every other day, when I was in town, I would go to Arsenio's house after he would come back home, and I would just, crack open a bottle of rum and drink a little bit. He would you drink a little much, and we will both have a good time. But it was mainly two things that was always present in those conversations. Was one, poetry. That man was such a good poet, man. He would write his poems and he would recite the poems with. He would cry, by reciting the poems himself. It was very touching, and all the poems contained tobacco knowledge stuff. I wish someone one day would publish a book with those poems. I know his son is still involved in cigars as his own small company there. I know Arganosa just kind of made a line or revamped a line in dedication to Arsenio's life called Arsenio. They're launched at the PCA right now. Just kind of plugging them uh, because Arsenio was just this amazing guy, man. I have so many stories of Arsenio. The most popular story I have was when he was very tipsy. I had my share, uh, and he asked me to kind of drive to the farm, to one of the farms they had there in Esteli. And I said, "You out of your mind, old man? This is like I know it's almost 10 o'clock at night. It's dark. There's no one there." And he was like, "Take me to the farm. Take me to the farm." And like his son said, "Man, when he puts something in his head, he has to do it. So let's go." So I drove him to the farm, and I see that old man just kind of laying down in the middle of the fields. And I said, "Hey, he's crazy, man." Because I don't know if you know Stali, but there's spiders. There's some animals there that if you are not so versed into knowing, what is what, you might get yourself in trouble. But try to imagine 10 o'clock at night, no lights, nothing, in the middle of that place with our cell phones, like and our center just lays in the ground, and he kind of demands that I do the same. Just lay in the ground, lay in the ground. So when I realized I had no escape, I had to do it. So I lay down. I'm shitting my pants like there'll be a freaking snake that'll come and bite us. And I thought to myself, that may be the best way of dying in the middle of the tobacco fields. And maybe one day they'll make a cigar brand with the store or something. So then, he actually demanded that we all stay quiet. So listen to. I couldn't listen shit. It was silence. But maybe 30 seconds later, my brain started tuning into this noise, which I can replicate here, obviously, but it's a noise of the tobacco growing. If I tell you that you can hear the sound of the tobacco growing, uh, it's crazy. It's a very kind of unique sound and frequency. Once you tuned, you can hear it. Tobacco grows so fast, there's so many energy that's drawn for the soil, for that plant to grow. But tobacco can grow up to 2 millimeters a day. It's a lot.
Mhm.
And it can actually double when you're priming. In 1 week, you can double the weight of the plant just by doing the right priming, by just cutting the two bottom leaves and can capping the top of the plant. So that plant will weight double the weight in just 1 week. So when you go at night, especially and the silence, you can hear that. You can hear the growth of the plant. It's just like one of the most remarkable experience about Arsenio. And just one of the things, like he always make comparisons for you to learn things about tobacco. You bring a tobacco leaf, and that's the way I've learned. I never forgot. And he'll explain to you how the tip, let's imagine this is a tobacco leaf, how the tip of the leaf has more strength and more minerals. It's more aggressive. And the bottom of the leaf, it's sometimes can be bitter, can be, just with no strength and much flavor. And he always compare that to the young woman, the mid-aged woman, and the old woman. It's a very sexist thing to say here, so I'm not gonna say it, but I'll tell you, man, it was fun as hell. And you just wouldn't forget those stories, like you learn tobacco with that man just reciting poetry and kind of walking with you and show you things around. So it was just yeah, definitely Arsenio Ramos, man. I miss that man so much. So he passed away about 6 years ago. But it's a guy that whoever had the chance to meet him would definitely never forget him. And I think if someone that deserves to be like in that Hall of Fame thing that they do, it's that guy. But he was always a behind the scenes guy, He was not never in the front. But he was actually the blender for many of the successes of that company too.
Well, we have somebody watching here, Josh. It says that blend a cigar to that story. Smoke it to clear your head so you can hear what's really going on around you. All the amazing things you're not hearing because of all the noise. That might be a story worth captivating for you too, Luciano, one day. That might be a fun limited release for you to
If I
capture that experience.
if I if I am going to be 100% candidate here, that's not a new idea. We thought about that before, and who knows? Yeah, maybe we'll do
Well, I think that
it.
would be a great idea for you. That's a fantastic story. Thank you for sharing that. Paul says, ask you about the tobacco that you recently discovered with your wife on vacation.
That's a good story, but I'm gonna give too much. But I'll tell you the basics of the or the general story, which is it's funny. So I'm on I did this 23andMe thing, right? So I'm looking to my ancestry, and I found out that my Portuguese side actually comes from the islands of Azores, which is like in the middle of the Atlantic, in between the coast of United States and the coast of Portugal. So it's right there in the middle. It's there's several islands, around that. But there's an island called San Miguel. It's technically where many generations of the family comes from. So, and I heard great things about the place, how beautiful it is. A year before, in 2022, my wife got diagnosed with cancer, and she started treatment, and she had to do a surgery. So I had to travel, be with her, and we didn't celebrate our 25th anniversary. Uh, so we have to postpone that celebration. So a year later, 2023, last year, we decided to celebrate our 26th and the 25th. So we went to this island and decided to stay just for a week there before the trade show in Dortmund, the Intertabac. So we fly there and we had a great time. And I'm looking into, all the vegetation around us, and I'm seeing very similar vegetation to where the soil to grow tobacco it's very similar. So it's usually there's not many trees. The soil is soft. The color of the soil, the climate. I said, man, this is a tobacco land. I wonder if someone grows tobacco here. So I just speak out loud, and I'm in this restaurant with my wife, and then my wife says, "Why don't you ask?" So ask who? So I don't know anyone here to ask about tobacco. So ask the waitress. I said, why the hell the waitress would know anything about tobacco? So I just kind of sort of ignored. So I went to the restroom, and then as I come back, I sit, and then she calls the waitress and said, "Tell him." She just said, "Tell him." And the waitress says, "Hey, she told me you want to know about tobacco here in the island. My uncle, grows tobacco in his backyard, and if you wanna, I can get you a sample of the tobacco, and you can meet up with him tomorrow." So you gotta be kidding me. So the waitress of the restaurant knew about the tobacco, man. So make it the long story short, I go to meet this old man, and he's actually nephew comes, another nephew comes and brings the tobacco to me, and I'm going to the beach, and I decided to make a cigar. So the tobacco that he brought to me is what we call in Portuguese they call tabaco de corda, which means it has that kind of they use one tobacco leaf in a center, and they roll the tobacco and they ferment, and almost like they compact the tobacco together and they ferment the tobacco for chewing, basically. So I got the tobacco, it's kind of half fermented. I unravel the whole thing, try to get a leaf that's not broken, and then I make the bunch, I make a cigar, and I start smoking. And as soon as I hit that cigar, I was like, "Holy fuck, the cigar is too strong, man! There's a lot of nicotine here. There's something wrong." Like I've never smoked, and I smoke raw tobacco all the time. If you ask the boys, they go with me to the hanging barns, and we just grab leaves from the hanging barn to try and see how they are. So I'm used to smoke raw tobacco. The tobacco is not just raw. The tobacco had a lot of nicotine. So start digging into the story of the tobacco. They have a museum of tobacco there, and I found out that the seeds that they cultivate there are super old. Uh, uh, there is actually more There's more history in that island of manufacturing uh, uh, what would be a kind of predecessor to cigars. So they'll actually roll these leaves into leaves to smoke, and they're more than Cuba. So it's older than Cuba. That has centuries and centuries of tradition of tobacco. But one time in history, about 100 and something years ago, someone brought a seed from Australia of a seed strain called Atala, Atala, which has a kind of a white flower. People that are watching, they can maybe try to find this, somewhere. And they crossed that with that tobacco that they have there. There was probably tobaccos from Asia, from Spain, from Central America, all kind of cross-pollinated, and they did that with the Atala with it. So the Atala is a stronger version of what we know to be the Nicotiana rustica, which is a Central American tobacco, very thin, long, and has a lot of nicotine. So the Atala has a lot of nicotine as well. But the result of that is this kind of deep sweet and at the same time extremely rich in nicotine. So we send this tobacco. I bring this tobacco home, and we send this tobacco to chemical analysis, and we find out that tobacco has twice more or three times more nicotine than tobaccos from Esteli, and more sweetness, more biomatter. So there's a lot of minerality, but the 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 bio component, the carbon is just kind of retains so much of the soil. So there is this very high intensity in the tobacco, and I said, "Holy mother! I need to blend this with something." So I got super excited, and later I found some kind of local manufacturers and tobacco producers there, and there is some kind of interesting projects in the works. So we wanna introduce the tobacco from the Azores to the world. So let's see if it works.
That is awesome. So when it's high nicotine, is that when it's the raw form and it's that high nicotine? What it is it? Does it kind of numb the mouth? Is the retro hair really potent? Like
No,
what is
it's
that flavor?
no. Listen, that brings another interesting discussion, which is the difference between, uh, or not the difference, but how when you say a cigar is strong, what exactly do you mean by that? So there is this very common consuming habit especially in the United States, that or the idea that a harsh and spicy cigar, it's a strong cigar, or a strong cigar means it's harsh and spicy, and if it's strong, makes you sick. If you are empty stomach and you smoke it, you feel bad about it, right? So I like to kind of bust some myths about that kind of stuff. First of all, nicotine doesn't make you actually stomach sick. Uh, there's several things that you feel when you are intoxicated with nicotine, but like feeling sick is definitely feeling nausea or stomach sick is not one of them. So when you are intoxicated by nicotine, well, the first effect of nicotine is uh, focus. That's the first thing that happens when you start smoking. The second one is relaxation, and then the third, you start having your blood vessels constrict a little bit, so you start having headaches because of it, and your blood pressure elevates. And as you smoke more and more tobaccos that have too much nicotine on them, when you smoke too much, that will be the most common side effect. Now, on the other hand, tobaccos that are under fermented, they have three things that they cause in you. First one is you feel that the tobacco is extremely harsh. The second one, it's an excessive spiciness. And the third one is that when you smoke, that the ammonia will make you stomach sick. So when you have a cigar that you feel uh, extremely nauseated, that you feel like you're smoking something that has a lot of residual flavor in your mouth, that stays in your tongue, and immediately your brain, and because of the stories that keep being repeated over and over by cigar media, by everybody, uh, they think that they're smoking a strong cigar in nicotine. But guess what? You can talk to any physician or anyone that knows the effects of the chemical components in your body, and they'll tell you that one of the things that happens when you have too much ammonia, your body do not absorb nicotine, which means the more ammonia, the less nicotine you absorb in your blood system. So that's why this whole concept of smoking strong cigars without having a meal, it's basically bullshit. So in fact, if you want to actually taste a cigar that's really well aged, that's a true Maduro. A true Maduro, it's never spicy. A true Maduro is never uh, unpleasant. A true Maduro is buttery. A true Maduro has density because most likely you make that cigar with a lot of thick tobaccos on it. So there's a lot of density. You can actually, if you pay attention, when people are smoking strong cigar, you notice that they smoke kind of stays or sometimes even goes down. When people are smoking a mild cigar, you see that the smoke always go up because the particles of carbon are much smaller because the leaves are thinner. So the smoke is actually lighter. So it kind of goes up. All that to say, that tobacco that I experience has a lot of nicotine and a lot of sweetness, and a lot of strength. So it's a perfect tobacco to blend. And I'll give you an example. If I want to build a strong cigar, a cigar that is very dense and rich in nicotine, you have to understand that strength and flavor, they are enemies in the blending. So the more strength you have, the less flavor you have. That's why the more sickles you use, the more thinner leaves you use, more aroma, more nose you have, and more some parts of your palate will perceive will see more complexity when you mix those leaves together. When you have tobaccos, they're too thick, they're too bold. Usually, you get that strength first, that bite first, and then you miss all the flavors that could be built, in that cigar. So if you wanted today to really make a strong cigar, what are you gonna do? You're gonna use a lot of Viso and Ligero, and you're gonna choose regions that or tobacco varieties, tobacco species that will deliver that amount of nicotine. If I want to make a very strong cigar, I'm gonna make a triple Ligero from Esteli, for example, and add a lot of Ligero from Jalapa and try to build a strong blend. But that restricts the amount of flavors I can actually build in that blend because I have to put too many leaves to deliver that amount of nicotine. I have to put too many of one thing. So what if I can use a tobacco that will deliver the same strength, the same content of nicotine, and even more sweetness with just half leaf? I don't need to use three. I just use half of that leaf, and I'll have exactly that goal that I want to. And then I can fill that cigar with other types of tobacco. They'll create different layers in the taste profile. They'll create different reactions. So the beauty of that tobacco is the how versatile your blending capabilities can be by using a tobacco like that. You know.
So when you're going on these trips and you're with your wife obviously knows who you are and what you do and the love and the passion you have for it. You had also mentioned earlier on that the private equity world didn't make you the best family man, didn't make you the
Hmm.
best maybe husband or father or however that played out in your head. So where is your balance when you're on a trip like this with your wife and you get the bug up your ass and go, I want to try to find some tobacco? Do you have to kind of like tame yourself and or
Yeah.
does your wife just understand?
Yeah. There's some tension sometimes. That's what I can say. She uh she can be bothered by that many times. In fact, there was a time she stopped doing that, but there was a time where she would say, you got to get out of this bubble. All you talk about it's tobacco. All you talk about it's cigar. And I'm telling you, there's people watching that know exactly what I'm saying because they've been around my family. They know the dynamics. Uh, Sometimes we would uh, go to like family dinners, and as soon as I start talking about cigars and tobacco, they would do like not kidding. They had this thing. They would do like this, like just to fuck with me. Yeah, they would just kind of do like this type of thing in front of people and stuff. Oh, here he comes talking about tobacco again and about cigars again. Yeah. So there's a little tension, but we try to balance. Like she's super supportive of what we do. She's not a cigar smoker, but she's very supportive. Out of my three kids, all of them smoke cigars with me. I have three daughters. One
Nice.
of them, yeah, one of them actually is the youngest. She's the one that probably smokes the most with me, but all of them smoke cigars, and uh, yeah, but we try to balance it. But that's a good question. She does get bothered a lot if and what's worst is when you go out with some industry friend, right? It's sometimes I don't know. I can mention several names here. Like we will go out, me and another manufacturer with the wives, and we'll go to a restaurant and sit down, and then you see her face like, we are here not to talk about cigars. So, but that's impossible. I'm here, with this person, and and we have to talk about cigars. It's impossible not to. And then we try really hard not to. We try really hard, but we always somehow, gravitate back to the topic.
So the family rule at the Luciano table is no religion, no politics, no tobacco.
Oh no, lots of politics, man, lots of religion. There's no
So it's the
tobacco.
opposite.
Yeah, lots of politics. It's just one thing about a family dinner. This is a lot of politics. Not coming from me though, but they are very much like how can I say this? Uh, they are free thinkers, and I'm proud of that. They are deep thinkers and free thinkers, and they have different opinions about many different things. Sometimes I just listen to my daughters and I said, "Man, who raised these girls? I can't believe they think this way." But they are people they have their own personalities, they have their own choices and stuff. So I respect that. I actually admire that.
So
I'm
how
proud to have very strong, like they say, strong independent women's in my life. And they definitely I'm definitely super proud of who they are.
I have a daughter. She's 2.5. Oh, going to be 3 at the end of June. My wife smokes cigars, so there's a really high probability that my daughter will be smoking cigars too. Um,
Yeah.
but I get the same thing because my wife will be like, "Oh my gosh, here we go. Yeah, he's talking about everywhere you go, you've got 5 or 6 cigars with you. Like, just because it's a nice day at a friend's house doesn't mean you got to be outside lighting one up." I personally, I understand, but I go through a little bit of that. So what do you do? Who is Luciano when he's not Luciano Cigars Luciano? What do you do when you aren't so enthralled in tobacco? What are some other hobbies that maybe some people don't know about you?
Man, I have a few things actually that I would say make me disconnect in general. Like I can feel like, man, I'm just relaxing completely here. And if whoever knows me know that I love fishing. So when I'm fishing, that's something magical about fishing. I just don't check my phone. I just forget about absolutely everything. So fishing would be something that I love to do. I would say music is something that is very present in my life just because before tobacco, music was the only way for me to kind of cope with my condition. So music is super present in my life in every shape or form. Um, I love instruments. I always kind of like people say when you play too many instruments, you don't play any well. So that's my case. I play by ear lots of instruments, but I don't play anything really well. Uh, and I love I just love everybody said I love spend time with my family, but I truly do. But I like to travel with my family. I think we built this kind of into the characters of our daughters too, for necessity at the beginning. Like we have to travel and move to different places because my job requires to move. But we used to kind of always at least once or twice a year doing international traveling together, and those are the best moments, the best times that I have in my memory, like uh, discovering so many things within each other, and I noticed that that's something that brings me pleasure. It's just to kind of travel with my family. Uh, Also, I know if I say that blending cigars, I'll go back to it, but it is like it is. If let me tell you this, if I could not have to worry about a trade show right now, and I could just sit on my porch and open my case of tobacco, so just sit there and smoke and maybe and blend and watch a TV show on Netflix, with my wife next to me. Uh, that's very much kind of underrated, I guess, in my life right now. Like I wish I could have more of these times. So those things relax me. But fishing is definitely something I like shooting too. That's another thing too. I've been I've been a sports shooter since very young age.
Nice.
I love shooting, so that's something that I do. I used to do more, but at least twice a month I'm at the range and practicing. I still have my competition gun. I have different things that I like to like to train. For me, shooting is not like a situation that I go to just kind of get stress out of me. When I shoot, I train focus, I train my
Sure.
brain. I'm a slow shooter. I'm not a guy who's training for self defense. I'm training to be more accurate, to be more to just score better. Into the shooting range. I like to instruct. I like to teach people how to shoot too. That's something that I love doing too. All my daughters, they know how to shoot. Even my wife, she's a natural. She doesn't like much to go to the range, but when she does, she beats everybody else. So it's hard to beat her.
Yeah, I've been shooting since I was 7. The first I ever shot was a single shot or a single round, single barrel 410, break open 410. I love guns. I'm a big handgun guy. I'm a firm believer that every military base should have fire sales like once a month. And if you could drag it, drive it, fly it, or ride it home, you could own it. I love guns. They're a huge part of my life as well. They are a great de-stressing mechanism, but they're a great way to slow down too, like you said, because you can go out and like I carry everywhere. You can go out and practice for self-defense, or you could sit there and take your time, relax, control your breathing, pop your shots. The best snipers, it's crazy. They train to shoot in between heartbeats. Like it is insane the type of dedication and really what shooting can do for someone's psyche. And I had somebody tell me once, I don't like to spend time with my family. I like to create memories with my family because somebody told me there's a difference between spending time. I could spend time and I'm on my phone. I'm in the same room with them, but I'm not creating that memory. So for him, he always used to say, I like to create memories with my family because that drew, and I like saying that too. That draws a totally different image, personally.
Yeah.
But so as somebody that has a daughter, just one, long ways on, how old are your daughters?
Well, 26, 23, and 20.
Wow. Okay. 3 years apart, all of them. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. What is a piece of advice? Because my God, you got three of them. You're a gun guy. Now I know why you're a gun guy. Um, and now I know why you train to be accurate from a long distance, probably too. So, uh, so as a father of three daughters, what's a piece of advice you could give to somebody for that's raising a daughter?
Hey, bro, I can give the fun answer short, just kind of trying to be superficial here, but I'm gonna probably dive a little deep here.
Go
What
ahead.
I've learned from my mistakes. Okay, so I'll tell you about mistakes I made. Always when we raise a daughter, you want her to be everything you admire about a woman, and you want her never to be like the girls that you probably messed up with when you were a teenager. That's the truth.
It
So you
is.
don't want your daughter, to kind of, go and start dating a bunch of guys, or so you want her to find her true love, or you want her to be successful, not necessarily even marry. Like I'm as you probably know, so I'm a conservative guy, but when it comes to certain things, I think our society is so behind, man. How people treat women, and this kind of whole idea that they have to kind of, you know, get married, and be a housewife. And I know for a fact that I will never have have that in my family. My girls are super independent and super intelligent. They can do whatever they want, and so the mistake for me is like always to be overprotective. So I always wanted to make sure they're protected, that they learn, they have to do this, they have to do that. And we forget that our kids in general, they have their own will. They have their own choices. Sometimes we think that kids are just an extension of who we are, when actually they are individuals. They think for themselves. And sometimes they'll make mistakes that's nothing to do with you, nothing to do with your character, nothing to do with the character of your wife. It's just who they are. It's just they are learning. Of course, we can make mistakes as parents. We can, uh, uh, you know, just teach their own thing. But the best teaching we can do is always like live by example. I if you can raise your kids with the fundamentals of, speak the truth, be yourself, fight for your happiness, and respect the other, and never settle for less. Just kind of always aim for the best you can be. uh, those general teachings, those general concepts usually are passed on by example, not by words. And when they see that, just trust, because they will fail, man. They'll make a lot of mistakes, and kids in general, because we all did. If you remember when you were their age, I remember when I was 16, and I was a mess, like 15 years old, 16 years old. I had, I don't know how many girlfriends, and I was just kind of, doing things uh, that I would hate that my daughters would do one day. So, but the truth is, they are much better than I am, and they become, this beautiful women's, and they all have their own personalities, their own choices. But I can tell you three things I know I can tell you for sure. Those kids, they're extremely intelligent. Uh, they love each other and they love their parents, and um, and we love them, and they are the best thing that happened to me, and I'm sure to my wife too.
Yeah, and I appreciate you because that's you just want your kids to be better than what you were, right? Every generation, that's the goal in life. I don't want my daughter dating anybody remotely like me. I was when I was 16, 17. I mean, I'll be upfront and honest with you on that. Um, so last question about kids, and we're jumping to lightning round, and we'll end the show here. How hard is it to watch your kids fail, and how difficult is it to let them and not help them? Meaning, it's the fall off the bike scenario, right? To get back on it. You can't catch them because if you catch them from falling off the bike, they won't learn to get back up after they fall. So now you have three daughters, all three different, 6 years from oldest to youngest. How hard was it for you to sit back and let them make a mistake and watch that, knowing it would benefit them?
I was a little more radical about that. I'll give you just an example. I'm going to tell a story. So we used to live in a house, and Rachel, my youngest, she was just a baby, like 3 years old, 4 years old max. And we would have to have protection around the swimming pool because she would love to just come and jump in the swimming pool every time. If she was walking by the swimming pool, she would jump, and she would drive us crazy because we always have like this feeling of we have to watch her all the time because she's going to jump in a pool and something can happen. And we heard all the stories of kids that die in swimming pools and stuff. So one day I just had this idea. I told my wife, you know what? I'm going to watch from far, and I'm going to let her jump in the swimming pool, and I'm going to take about 30 seconds to rescue her. You know, I don't know, it's so stupid. But yeah, we did that. So she jumped to the swimming pool and she was desperate. Like she was like trying to kind of, they say that when you throw babies in the water, they just kind of learn how to swim right away. But when it's 3 years old, it's not like that. She
Yeah.
was truly like, I 30 seconds, I exaggerate a little bit. Maybe 10 seconds later, jump into the pool and I rescue her. I'll tell you this, bro. She never jumped into that pool again. That was the end of the problem. Sometimes People have to fail to
Yeah.
learn that, they unfortunately, and listen, that's a good analogy in life. You don't have to go through this to learn, you know. But when you don't have the conscious, when you don't see it, when you can't actually pay attention to what's happening, or you're dumb, you will make those mistakes, and hopefully you learn from them. Uh, but when you are aware of the risks, and you don't know how to swim, learn how to swim or don't fucking jump in the swimming pool, you know? So you have to you when you have awareness, a different story. But yeah, I mean, you know, people in general, our kids too, they have to experience frustration, and they have to fail. They have to be uh, they have to see certain things in life, and that's how it works. I remember, like, the first time that my kids are very privileged. They were born in a time where they didn't have any kind of reality. I'm talking about poverty or uh, you know uh, criminality, or any of the risks that kind of are around everybody these days. At that time, we used to protect them a lot, so they didn't have any of that connection. But I remember the first time when I took them down to Nicaragua, or that they experienced maybe in a traveling to South America, to Brazil, or to a kind of mission night with the church in Chicago. So they will see that reality, uh, and they learned from it. So they felt not just touched; they felt like, you know, this is now I see why I cannot actually just kind of go out by myself certain times of the day. Or I learned that I have to have compassion towards people that will never be able uh, to have what I have, and some kids that didn't have the luck to be born in a family like mine, and unfortunately, it's very unlikely that those kids will actually be able to achieve what I can because of the privilege that I have. So those type of things are important. I think kids, they need to see the reality. They need to learn. And I'm telling you, man, as it was 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years ago, humans, they are still developing and evolving. And at one point, uh, you can see how kids are much smarter than you and I were when we were kids. That's the truth. Our kids are
Oh,
more
absolutely.
intelligent. They're faster learners. They learn technology way quicker than we do, and we did quicker than our parents and grandparents. And that's why you have this huge, technology development. And that's why we didn't have airplanes 200 years ago, and now we have, you know, airplanes, and we have the man, you know, got to the moon, and we have so many things that makes our lives much easier today because of human invention, because the human brain is developing, and that's another paradigm too I've learned. I was raised in a way that kids don't have a say at the table, or you're too young to have an opinion. You're too young to say anything. You're not in the adult table. You go to the kids table. Actually, that was something that I've learned, and my daughters always had a seat at the table. Where I would try to pay attention, and I noticed that many things that I need to learn, I learned from them, and God spoke through them to my life. There's many situations where I was not seeing things that a very innocent soul had to tell me, and in their own simple words, things like changing my lifestyle, for example. Where I give you this example of how my life before cigars and after cigars. I have to hear hard things from Deborah, my elder daughter, that she'll come and say, Dad, you just do not prioritize me in your life, period. And hear those things was super hard, you know. But because I heard those things, it changed, and I became a better father. And Rebecca and Rachel got little better versions of myself. And I'm proud to see that because of them. So you asked me about what is the biggest influence or mentor that I had in the cigar industry. I can tell you that I wouldn't be here now and I'm talking about life-wise, not even about cigars or tobacco, anything like that. I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for my wife and my three kids. They are the ones who shaped my character too. They're part of, it's not just my grandparents, but also their influence in my life.
Well, that I love that. I love that story, and you're right. It's hard to hear that stuff, but there's a difference between listening and hearing. You heard what your daughter said. You didn't just listen to what she said. And that's what makes you a great father, is that you took
Yeah.
that, you didn't get angry by that. You didn't go, I'm giving you all I can give you. You found a way to give more to fill that void that she felt. And that's what a great father is. That's what a great parent does, is they listen to their children and they try to do better by them. And Josh, you brought up a great point. I'm a firm believer of this. The only way you ever could be successful in life is if you failed first. Because without failing, you don't know what it is to be successful. You don't know what that means to be rock bottom and build yourself back up again, or recreate your life, recreate yourself. So
Absolutely. Very good
thank
one,
you
Josh.
for adding that. So here on the lightning round question, before we wrap up the show, just a few quick answer style questions here. What is your favorite cut for a cigar?
Favorite cut. So I
Or
don't
are
know,
you a
man.
picker?
I think again. I think there's too much. It's too much fluffy thing, around this whole thing of cutting. And but I'll try to kind of be concise about it. So I like straight cut. I just think straight cut is the best way. Usually cigars they have caps because actually back in the day the cap we used to just kind of remove the cap and smoke. That's what it was supposed to be. Like I like straight cuts. I think the V cut is kind of cool too. Sometimes I'm smoking a cigar, and especially like for some reason, like the box press V cut, horizontal. Sometimes it feels different the way the smoke hits your mouth. So I like that. But V cuts they were created to actually cut short filler cigars. It's a new invention that people created because usually if you're smoking a short filler cigar and you cut the short filler, usually the tobacco that's all grinded, goes to your tongue, and uh, so the V cut was created because of short fillers. People don't know this. They like to make a
I
whole
had no
big
idea.
deal. Yeah, they like to make this whole romance about V cuts. V cuts were specifically created to cut short filler cigars, and then became a thing. It's just like some great things in life sometimes happen for accident. I love pizza, for example, but pizza was a food of the commons. So the Italians they wouldn't have money to buy food, so they'll make a dough and throw all the leftovers they would find into that dough and put cheese on top, and that house pizza was created. One of the most famous dishes in Brazil is this, they call the feijoada, is the bean stew. Actually, it was all because the slaves they would not have um, access to the real meat, so they'll get the parts of the pork and they'll put that with beans and make the stew with all that stuff, and became one of the most acclaimed dishes in the world too. So again, it started as being a cutter for Schauffele and became like a uh, some kind of fancy thing, I guess. But the cutting of the cigar is what will basically it's just to determine the draw. And see if you want to control that draw, uh, if you think that cigar is just not fully packed or it's just underfilled or something like that. Usually the V cut will give you a better experience because it's less airflow, or sometimes a cigar is intentionally a little more packed. So we have another cigar that we are launching at the trade show uh, that we will announce Monday. And that cigar needs a straight cut because it's a cigar that it is more compact. It takes more. It's a little more dense in tobacco. So I think it varies from experience. I think in general, my response would be just a straight cut.
I had no idea that V cuts were developed for short filler, but that totally makes sense. I have a
Yeah.
tendency to use V cuts on thinner gauge cigars. I don't know
Mhm.
why. I just like them better on Lanceros. I like the V cut better because I like it holding the cap better.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm a big Lancero guy. Looking forward to another Lancero outside of the Dreamer from you, hopefully soon. Um, so, what is your favorite wrapper, hands down, for a cigar?
Oh man, I don't have that type of thing. For me is the same thing as asking like what's your favorite food? I think if I'm eating like I love steak, but if I'm eating steaks like 3, 4 days in a row, I want a fucking lasagna. I want something else. I want to experience a different thing. I think all the wrappers that are commonly used today, they're all awesome. They have a function for that the taste profile, Uh, I can maybe give my opinion on what I think of appearance or what I think it's more complex on wrappers. But sometimes what you want is not complexity. What you want is to add one element to the taste profile or to the beauty of a cigar, and that's why I use that wrapper. I'm always been fascinated by wrappers that have salinity, wrappers that has some kind of salt. Uh, because just like if you want to experience fully a sweetness of a dark chocolate, make sure you put a little bit of sea salt on it, and then the sweetness will come. So I like the wrapper to add that salinity. So wrappers like Sumatra uh, contains a lot of salinity. Uh, Wrappers like some kind of Havana, a Cuban Havana 2000, the Cuban grown in Cuba, because of the breeze, of the sea, the amount of salt that goes into that fermentation just because of that breeze, it's amazing. And uh, yeah, I think in terms of beauty, I'm always been fascinated with Viso wrapper, like Corojo 99, Corojo 98, because you can get some, especially when it's super clean, and you can get so much flavor and density out of it. This wrapper, for example, that we use in Tenebris, this wrapper that Plasencia developed the seed and grow in his farms San Agustin, is a very unique wrapper, man, because these wrappers, they are so thick. Uh, and they apply a cold fermentation to this wrapper. So they ferment for a very long time at low temperature. So it takes a long time for the wrapper to have the proper combustion. But the flavors you get, because you're not actually accelerating too much, it's not too much heat, reducing the biomass. It always stays like super thick. And that slow fermentation gives that kind of even color, and so much flavor comes from that wrapper. I think I can tell you the wrapper that I'm in love right now is definitely that Azacualpa wrapper, the Placencia wrapper. It's just something that is just not out there. I think they disrupt with developing a wrapper without even making a lot of noise about it. But it's a wrapper that they use in many successful things that they make.
I'm looking very forward to trying that one. I'm going to have to do my best to get my hands on one of those for sure.
You'll love it.
What does your personal we'll end the show with two questions. What is your favorite pairing, whether it's drink or coffee or anything with a cigar? And then what is your personal at home humidor like?
Oh man. I think the favorite pairing is the right pairing, right? So if you If I'm smoking a Fiat Lux, for example, my pairing will always going to be a Scotch whiskey. So, and I love when those two things when you stumble into that perfect pairing. Uh, I like to say that you don't pair anything; the pairings already exist. You just discover them. So a lot of people say,
I
"I'm
love
gonna
it.
pair."
I love
So I see a lot of shows say, "I'm gonna pair this with this." Actually, the right thing to say would be, "We discovered this pairing. We want to share with you that this thing actually goes with this thing." You know. My answer, I'm sorry, it's going to be the perfect pairing is the best one because I like rum with certain cigars. I like bourbon with some other cigars, and I love wine with some cigars. I like that discovery. I like that. But I can tell you, recently I've been trying the Portuguese rums, which is actually it's more like a brandy than actually rum because it's made out of grapes. Uh, and the old ones, like man, it's just amazing. Like it goes with so many different cigars, you know. Like they call the aguardente, Portuguese aguardente. It's just phenomenal. It goes almost with everything that takes San Andres or Connecticut broadleaf. Uh, it's just it has an interesting connection with those two. The taste profiles that are associated with those two wrappers. And what
You
was the
know,
other question? The humidor.
the other question was, what is your at-home humidor like? And if you don't have, if you just have a small desktop one, that's fine. I was just curious if you had like an at-home built-in walk-in, turn to your garage or your
Yeah.
second story.
I used to live in a very big house in Chicago, very large house, and at that house I had a walk-in humidor and walk-in cellar and stuff. But we after the girls kind of left the house and I have to we moved down to California, then here in Florida. Uh, I don't have the space for like a walk-in humidor. But you see in my house that I have probably about 4 or 5 humidors spread all over the house, table humidors everywhere. I try to get buy the ones that really kind of steals. You know, there's one specific one that I love. I don't know even the name of the manufacturer, so I'm not gonna plug any publicity here for them because I don't remember their name. But it really works. And also, man, I have so many cigars in my house that I have a lot of those kind of coolers, like full
Yeah,
of cigars, you know, in a room with some air conditioning in it, and it just sealed full of Bovedas inside. Uh, but I find the the table humidor is just kind of I just have a bunch of them all over the place.
that's awesome. Look at even Luciano himself does cooladors. Like that's how good they are. I mean, cooladors. I got a
Yeah.
buddy that's got like 15 tupadors, and that's his humidor. He's got a tupador for each brand, and then a few sporadic loose ones. I mean, that's really the fun of it, right? Just collecting, mix and matching, and just enjoying this activity that we love called smoking cigars. Well, Luciano, thank you so much. This has been story time with Luciano. This has been absolutely a fantastic show. Um, I learned a lot tonight inside the tobacco world, and I love your delivery. There's no bullshit with you. I mean, even your answer for favorite pairing is like it's whatever the right one is. Like that's that's brutal honesty to its finest, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course,
This has
pleasure, man.
been this has been absolutely fantastic. I've been wanting to get you on for a while. Saw you at TGS, jumped at the opportunity to have you on. Thank you very much for spending a week or a night with me right before your busiest trade show event of the year, and wish you all the best. And anybody that's going out to PCA, stop by Luciano's booth. And if you haven't ordered the cigar yet, definitely please reach out and order it because there probably is going to be none left come PCA. So,
Yeah.
and and then you're all going to be crying to Luciano saying, we want more, we want more. And he's going to go, everyone had the same opportunity. So thank you so much, Luciano. This has been
Pleasure,
a
brother.
fantastic, fantastic show. Big shout out to all the sponsors before we end. Micallef Cigars, BAMF Cigars, ROCF, Kristoff, Sagrado, Big Sky, Cornell and Diehl Pipe Tobacco, La Aurora, West Tampa, Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust, Abe DeBabna over at Smokin'. And tonight we paired with the Maria Lucia, a very good bourbon that went great. It was a perfect pairing for me. So that's all that mattered. Put out
For
my
you,
axe in
for
the
you
oak.
and for Wood.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh,
So,
Wood loves the Maria Lucia with the bourbon.
I'm a big bourbon Scotch guy myself. That's usually what I find most of my perfect pairings are. So, thank you everybody for the kind words. Great show. Right here, you turned somebody on to you tonight, Luciano, that has not tried your stuff, that will be going out and getting them. Bruce, thank you so much. Paul, thank you so much for joining in tonight. And until we see you all again, smoke what you like, smoke as often as you can. Have a great rest of your night.
Take care,
Peace.
guys.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye bye.